Warning, I've verified that most of this is false. Today is Canada Day, and many people around the world are probably wondering, what is Canada Day, and why do rich countries have so many holidays? So get ready for the real history of our home and native land with this guide to the history of Canada. Canada was first inhabited by people who wrote things down around the time of the American Revolution, when British colonists in New York and around there refused to join the rebellion on the grounds that it was impolite. Rather than head west or south, however, the intrepid Canadian colonists made the wise decision to face both freezing cold and freezing water and head north. This decision was so bright that these intellectual and insightful souls are known today as Newfoundlanders, who expressed their love for the frosty goodness of their new home by forging themselves a flag meant to resemble Neapolitan ice cream. Expanding the massive Canadian Empire, the colonists soon took over the rich and fertile territory of Labrador, a land so prosperous and populated today that the majority of the people you'll ever meet from there will be dogs. I mean, imagine Papua New Guinea freezing cold with, like, Yeti polygamists and enough trees to print 1 million copies of a 500-page Canadian novel about being in the woods with nothing but a hatchet, and maybe you'll have the idea of what Labrador is like. Also joining the party was Upper Canada, which would later be known as Ontario, and Lower Canada, later known as Quebec. Scholars of the social sciences have hotly debated why they were labeled as such, when upper was actually lower and lower was actually upper, but scholars of the physical sciences have noted it is more likely that simply nobody knew where the hell they were. Not long after that, Canada was also joined by a small group of islands that were afraid they'd one day be annexed by the US to test nuclear weapons, a few places way out west who joined solely for the purpose of complaining that we don't understand them, a couple of provinces in between just to make the whole thing sort of easier to draw, and a couple of absurdly northern territories that even the Vikings couldn't make a go of. Of course, the native inhabitants of Canada took some exception to all of this. The natives, whose land stretched across the entire continent, told the European Canadians that it was their land on the provision that they'd been there first, and that there was enough for everyone. The Europeans, who had just spent 400 years murdering each other and suffering in competition over a landmass barely the size of the mountain ranges that the natives were waving gently towards, said something which translates into modern English as "must be nice," and initiated their wholesale slaughter. This is sort of weird, because today we think about white Europeans as being nerdy squares who drive like this, but they were actually vicious warmongers back when everyone else had the open sky to just live in peace. Hopefully this puts an end to the debate that race really means anything, and that the only thing that really makes anyone crazy and violent is having to be around too many other people. After this, the next few hundred years or so passed without incident. Lots of fur trading and trading fur for other kinds of fur and wearing fur and exporting fur. Really nothing as exciting as what was going down in the US, what with the wars and the slavery, and the wars over the slavery, which may explain in part why American children can remember their national history and geography going back hundreds of years, whereas all Canadian children knows that we have to run outside in the rain today because Terry Fox made us, and that the capital of Saskatchewan is Vagina. Canada today, however, is a very exciting country to live in, with a host of new challenges for the present millennium. How can we strive to keep the meaningless conflict between English and French Canada alive, when most new Canadians are neither French nor English? How can we continue to fill our urban centers with architectural monstrosities like building cancers and alien genitals? Why doesn't anything, not a single frigging thing, cost any less than it used to when the dollar was below par? When you see someone carrying an iPhone up here, implying that they can actually afford it, are you just going to grab it out of their hands and smash it on the ground and punch them in the face until they're bleeding Rogers red all over the pavement, and then take the iPhone parts and grind it into their faces until they start crying out for Holt Renfrew security? Happy Canada Day.
Tell me, what's a Douglas fir?
C-A-N-A-D-A.
Bet you never heard of bobcat.